All righty, the format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Dave S.
How's everybody doing? My name's David. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also an addict, but this being a member meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I identify as an alcoholic. Let's see, how did it all begin? So, as a little kid, like I was the kind of kid that sat in the classroom and was like, I never really knew what the teacher was saying. It was like the Charlie Brown kind of thing, where the teacher was talking, and it was like, walk, 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 walk. That's what it was like for me. I was, totally ill-equipped to go to school because I was super sheltered when I was young, and I really just didn't get it, I'd be looking over at the person next door, the desk next to me, and they'd be yelling at me like, "Don't be copying after me," and I'd be like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know what I'm looking at," It was a rough go at the beginning. But what happened was I was with my mom in Redondo Beach, and I was about 11 years old, and she was an angel dust dealer, and they were passing angel dust around, and I was wanting to take a hit. So she said, well, he can take a hit if he wants, and the rest is pretty much history after that. I was fucked up, to say the least, excuse my language. And that led pretty much into a life of, wanting to stay loaded all the time. That's basically what I did. I stayed loaded, and everything I did had to do with getting loaded. Drinking, drugs, I put 7-Eleven out of pretty much the 7-Eleven business. That's why they're originally called 7-Elevens, because it's from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. That's why they call them 7-Elevens. But now they're 24 hours. Yeah, I did that. Anyway, let's see. I started doing a lot of crime, and because I needed money. I wanted to stay high. I wanted to have what other kids had. And, I was out burglarizing and running ripping and running and just terrorizing, pretty much everything. Everywhere I went, I kind of destroyed, And, basically it, put me in, juvenile halls, YA, prison, back to back to back to back to back to back. But I did really well in prison, and I'm grateful for it because, I'm really grateful for it because it really saved my life. Because had I not gone to prison, I'd probably be dead. There's no doubt in my mind I would be dead. Anytime I went into prison, I didn't use drugs. I didn't drink. I stayed away from the dumbasses. I stayed on the iron pile. I got in great shape. And it was pretty amazing, man, to be perfectly honest with you. And I felt really comfortable at home there. So, that's basically what happened, this went on for a lot of years. I mean, I would say 50, I'm 63 now. So, it was a long time coming, I was recently, about a little over a year ago, I had been sitting in a garage for about probably 2 years. I was smoking about 3 grams of heroin a day, 3 grams of crack a day, and I was selling a lot of drugs, and doing what we do. And no matter what I did, I could not get arrested. It just didn't seem like I could get arrested. I'd be out there driving like a madman, cops would pull up behind me and just drive off. And I was like, man, I got God on my side. I must be invisible, man. This is crazy. I couldn't believe it, man. It was like, I didn't get it, man. I don't know why it was happening. But basically, let me just give you a little insight first before I get into that. It talks in the big book, in the doctor's opinion, about being maladjusted to life, He talks about in full flight from reality and an outright mental defective. And that was me, 100%, man. And I thought, man, they must be talking about me, man, because that is me. And that was, full on my life, In any event, so I found out why, thank you. I found out why that, the reason why they wouldn't arrest me is because they were trying to build a case on me, and that's what they did. About 4 o'clock in the morning, one morning, they crashed in my garage door, and it was the feds. Lo and behold, the FBI. And I couldn't believe it, man. Yeah. So, they took me to MBA downtown, and I got charged with conspiracy to distribute, and they put me in with about 68 other guys, out there in the San Fernando Valley. I don't know if some of you probably heard about that little escapade. And it was really a blow to me because me being Jewish and in a white supremacist hate group, you know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense, but, it's all about the company you keep, right? So, you hang around with dogs, you're going to get fleas, and that's exactly what happened to me. Well, in any event, what happened was I bailed out, which I am out on bail right now. I went to the Phoenix house. I stayed there for 60 days. And I went back out to San Fernando to an RBH out there. And, I was on that Suboxone, and it was just driving me bananas, man. I didn't want to be on it, but I couldn't get off of it because the withdrawal was so bad from the Suboxone, it was worse than heroin. So I ended up leaving the RBH about 1 o'clock in the morning. I went up to see my old connection and got some heroin and some speed, some booze, and, snuck back into the RBH. And the next morning, my federal parole officer calls me, "Hey, David, we're going to come test you today." I was like, "Oh, naturally." So anyway, she came and tested me, and 2 days later, she calls me and she said, "David, there's a little problem with your test." And I said, "Well, I meant to tell you, but I didn't want to tell you at the time, I was fearful she was going to take me in at the time." So she goes, "Well, we have to report it, but I want to come talk to you." So she came and talked to me. She says, "Listen, David, I want better for you. I want you to have better for I want you to want better for yourself." And, I thought she was lying to me. I didn't think she really gave a shit, because she didn't really know me. But I ended up going back to federal court, and I'll be damned, she was the first one that stood up for me. Blew my mind. And that's where the magic happened. I could feel it shift, man, right then in that courtroom, man, from 50-50, half in, half out, to 49-51. All it takes is 1%, man. 1%, man, and you could be all the way in. So that's what happened, man. So from there, I went back to the Phoenix house. I stayed 120 days. Instead of going back out to the San Fernando Valley, I went to Long Beach. I went to Safe Refuge, which is an amazing place, man. I got to tell you, man, they saved my life. Yeah, I love that place. It was a 6-month program, super structured. A guy like me needs a little structure in his life. And I, to be perfectly honest with you, I do really well in a structured environment. So, I stayed there for 6 months. And, about a month into it, I started looking for a place to go to call home group, So I found a place called the Round Table out there in Long Beach. And, I started going every day and, met just a bunch of amazing people, and I got to tell you, man, it turns out my whole life they were telling me the truth, but I just couldn't see it because I was either drunk or high. So, I could see it now, though, and I can't even begin to tell you what my life is like today. For a guy like me, it's like, it's a life I don't deserve. I'm in college now. I'm in Long Beach City College. I'm in the Justice Scholars Program. I'm taking culinary arts. I'm getting all A's. For a guy that, was listening to Charlie Brown, teacher, it's fuck, man. It's amazing, and, I can now cook any of these kids. It's crazy. I guess I got a little experience on them. But, But it's been really amazing. My life is just incredible today. You know, I don't have one complaint, not one. You know, and you know, if you're sitting in these chairs and you're new, you know, it's not by coincidence. I promise you. You know, give it a chance, man. Give it some time. You know, I promise you. You know, it will make sense if you give it some time. So, in any event, I guess that's about it for me, man. Thanks for letting me share, man.
Now, our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Kurt S. from Northridge.
Hey guys, Kurt Sachs, alcoholic. You guys got a great group here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that. I want to thank your 10-minute speaker. Thank you for that. And I want to congratulate the birthday people. 1 year. Happy birthday to you. And was it 16 over there for you? I want to thank, funny story, I want to thank Keith for asking me to come out and give a talk. So I was a little nervous about what I was going to say, and I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of people, there's this and that. Keith walks over to me and he says, yeah, man, we had a speaker here last week. He was like God, man. There was 250 people here. Everybody loved him. I was like, oh, great, this is wonderful. So I'll apologize ahead of time, you know. Anyway, I should probably start out by telling you I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I should also tell you I want to thank my friends for coming out here with me. I've been going to meetings with Stan over there for almost 4 decades now, and he is my closest friend. And my girl I'm in love with, I'm grateful she came out with me, and she even has me in her life, and a few of my friends, so thanks for that. And I mean, that's really what Alcoholics Anonymous has been about for me, man. It's just been a brand new life. You know, I got me a brand new life here. You know, I didn't get just like a changed one. You know, it's interesting. I go to a lot of meetings to this day. I'm an everyday member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor people. I teach people how to sponsor people. It's really important to me. And I've come to find in listening to a lot of speakers that usually somebody either talks for 40 minutes about how they got sober, or if you get a good speaker, he's going to tell you his sober story. He's going to tell you what happened to him since the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous happened to him. I'm not a good speaker, so I'm going to bore you with it. No. So I was born in Philadelphia, not the one in Mississippi either, and my house was attached to somebody else's house, and you could drive a car down the street, and everybody knew everybody, and my parents loved me, and they loved my sister, but they really didn't love each other. And I tell you all of that to tell you this. I really believe alcoholism, for me, kind of took place long before I ever took a drink. It's very controversial, but for me, I feel like this spiritual malady that the book talks a lot about, I had a long time before I took a drink. You know, vis-a-vis, you know, the asshole came before the alcoholism, frankly. You know, and it was just laying there and wait, you know, for me. And the first time alcohol kind of touched that thing inside of me that was my alcoholism, it kind of just, everything kind of exploded. I mean, there was no invisible line for me that I've read about and I've heard about. You know what I mean? The first time I ever drank, I loved it so much because it felt so much better than the hell that I was living from the time I was born. I don't know why. I can't answer that. It just felt so much better than the way I felt without alcohol in me that I realized that it was never going to be enough. And I made a decision at a very young age that I was going to try to get, you know, intoxicated as much as I possibly could. You know, the first time I came to Alcoholics Anonymous was in 1981. By the time 1981 rolled around, I had already experimented with IV drugs. I had already, you know, I mean, cocaine was the big thing in the 80s. I was every bit the alcoholic in 1981 that I was in 1987. And I heard the words, you know, I heard, we are bodily and mentally different from our fellows. And I knew that that was true. I knew that that was true for me. I had felt bodily and mentally different from my fellows before I ever took a drink. You know, I loved Alcoholics Anonymous in 1981. Everything except the fact that they didn't have alcohol there. I was all down with it. I was down with AA. I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and I had gotten in trouble because I always get in trouble. I was 17. You know, you would think that your parents wouldn't let you go. My parents tripped over the coffee table trying to sign the paper to get rid of me, you know, and they let us out after 16 weeks of basic training. I was in the best shape of my life. It was the only 16 weeks I never took a drink, you know, since I was like 11. You know, I was in the best shape of my entire life. And so we did what, you know, every Marine should do. We got a bunch of cocaine and Jack Daniels and went to Disneyland, you know, and I was the only one that got off of the boat on the Pirates of the Caribbean and got in a sword fight with one of the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean. This happened for real, and I'm going to tell you something about Disneyland that a lot of people don't know. Disneyland has their own police. And they're no joke. I mean, they hire, like, trained people to be their, you know, and they stitched me up pretty good, man. Lost that one, you know. Not the happiest place on earth for me that day, and I mean, that's the story, though. You know, every time I ever drank, I can't say I got in trouble every time I ever drank, but every time I was in trouble, it was usually around, kind of like what Dave was talking about, it was usually around, you know, getting drugs, having drugs, drinking alcohol. It was usually around that, you know. I have to tell you that, you know, when I was a little boy, I got hold of a cigarette lighter, you know, that my father left on the coffee table with his Lucky Strikes. I was 3, and I was playing with this lighter, and I lit my clothes on fire. This really happened to me. And I lit my house on fire. My house was attached to every other house on the block, so wasn't a popular guy that day. And I almost burned to death. Like, I burned like 40% of my body. And I went to the hospital for a good long time and got out. And like I said, I grew up in you know, in Northeast Philly, and the kids were not kind to me. I had scars all over my neck and my face and my arms and my chest. So consequently, when I heard we were bodily and mentally different from our fellows, I felt that at my core, you know. And when I heard the language of, you know, by nature, as people, alcoholics are restless, irritable, and discontent, I understood what that meant, and I understood it at a very deep level long before I ever took a drink, right? This is why I've really thought to myself, you know, about alcoholism and about really what is that rooted in, you know? I mean, I have to believe that alcoholism cuts so much deeper than I drink too much and I can't stop. I get arrested and I go to jail. She throws me out. I can't keep a girlfriend. I quit school. It goes so much deeper than that for me. And I know that, you know, there's 100 people in this room, and we all probably experience alcoholism a lot differently, right? And I think we probably all experience recovery a lot differently. Now, I know that because I've been in a meeting every day for 38 years, and I've worked with people. You know, I just have to understand its effect on me. I went to my sister's house today. She's 3.5 years older than me. We're the only 2 in our family that are alive, basically. Everybody's dead. And you know, we have the same parents, the same everything. Except I got alcoholism and she doesn't. Now, this is an interesting thing. You know, she drinks, you know, a little bit too much wine, and it's like she stops and I got to carry her out of the restaurant like that. Or she'll break open like a bottle of like really, really expensive tequila and she'll put like ice cubes in it. Now, I can't understand any of this, you know. You know, and here's the thing, you know. She's a lonely woman, you know. She's got maybe she has 2 or 3 or 4 friends that she talks to. Maybe. And I'm probably one. I'm probably one of 4 numbers in her cell phone, right? I bet I got 800 phone numbers in this phone from people all across the whole planet, because I've been all around the whole planet, and I got phone numbers. I remember me and Stan were in Denmark. We're in Denmark. It's like, and we're just doing our thing. I think I had about 15 years of sobriety back then. He'll never let me forget this. He had 16. If I had 15, he had 16 and a half. And I'm in a meeting, and it's like this dingy little basement, right? And I figure I'm going to say something because I talk too much anyway. And I start sharing, and this guy from across the room, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I know you from the Owl Nest in Reseda. I'm 9,000 miles away from my hometown, and somebody knows me from Alcoholics Anonymous," right? My point is that I got so many phone numbers that people who just want the best for me in this beautiful fellowship we call Alcoholics Anonymous. And I really had done some very horrible things. I mean, I was not a good, I don't side with the people that say, you know, we're sick people trying to get well, not bad people trying to get good. I don't necessarily feel that that was the truth for me. I did a lot of bad things, and I regret a lot of the things that I did. I did a lot of bad things after I got physically sober that I regret, you know, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I really want to spend a little bit of time, you know, maybe a very little bit of time talking about how I used to drink, right? But I really want to spend 2/3 of this time telling you about my life in sobriety because it's important to me. I'll tell you this, by the time I was 14 years old, I had already been locked up for 2 years in Philadelphia. I came to California. I found people like Keith over there and people like David over there. Basically people like you, my people, right? And that's the first thing I did. And I did what I always do, you know. I drank and I used and I got high and I got in trouble. You know, I didn't get to go to school. I never made a choice to not get a high school diploma, but that came to pass because I like to drink. I never made a choice to not play sports. I was good at everything I ever touched. I swear to you I was. I was never excellent at anything because I drank, you know, but I could have been, right? I never made these choices, but these things came to pass in my life because alcohol and drugs became a lifestyle for me. A lifestyle for me. I needed to understand that, and I did not understand that for the longest time. The whole X factor in my life, by the time I started to frequent Alcoholics Anonymous at 17, was alcohol and drugs were like the big thing. And if I wasn't in it, I was getting it. And if I wasn't getting it, I was selling it. It was all about that. And it consumed me to the point where I really could not do anything else well. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't really have a girlfriend. I couldn't do music. I mean, I could have done a lot of things with my life, but I didn't. And it would look like I made, you know, to the normal person, to my mother or my father, they're dead now, but I'm sure they looked at me like, Jesus, you know, what are you doing, man? You can do anything you want, you know? Just looking at me like this, you know? People did that to me all the time, like this. Like, what's the matter with you? I've been looking like that. People looked at me like that my whole life. Teachers, just like, you know, what kind of logic are you working with? You know, so the point is that because alcohol and drugs took such a big part of my life, I couldn't really do anything else. And I couldn't understand why. I didn't realize that I had no choice. I had no choice. Because when I didn't drink, you know, for any period of time, I needed one so badly because of how I felt inside. And I drank, and let me tell you right now, at first I drank recreationally because I loved it. You know, and then I started to drink, you know, medicinally, you know, because I felt like I needed it, you know. And that became chronic for me. That became where I started to drink chronically. My sponsor says that very well, and I agree with him. That's exactly what happened to me. So the lifestyle of being an addict, you know, in the end, you know, it looked like I was homeless. It looked like I was living in Woodley Park where I met Keith, you know, 500 years ago. You know, I remember the day I became homeless. This meeting ends at what time? 10? No, I'm kidding. Thank you. I remember when I became homeless, I had a dog and I had a 1968 Chevelle, and not a cool one, not a good one. It had a cracked windshield and dented car, you know, just horrible, right? So my dog, his name was Bear. He weighed 170 pounds. He's sitting in the seat. The headliner's coming, you know, the headliner's torn. That's the kind of car I'm driving, right? And I just gotten thrown out of the place that I was living in because the roommate put dishes in my bed, and I shot at him with my shotgun, and had to go. This was normal. I don't want to say. I mean, this is, you know. There's the book talks about our alcoholic life had become the only normal one for us. My alcoholic life and the lifestyle that I was living had become normal for me. You know, the book talks a lot about us being delusional people. And listen, you know, I have to mix what I'm going to say with what I know. The words in this book, they either mean what they say they mean or they don't. If you're new, I come out here tonight for you. These people that got 5, 10, 15, 30, 50 years, they don't need to hear what I got to say. But if you're new, I come out here hopefully that you hear something. The words in the book, they either apply to me or they don't. And I need to make a decision. Originally, the Alcoholics Anonymous was a 6-step program, and they talk about complete deflation as the first step. That's not what it says today, in the steps, but I think that that's something that one would want to note. And for me, in 81, I wasn't completely deflated. But by the time 87 rolled around, quick story, day I become homeless. This happened. Sitting in my car, I drive to Woodley Park. I can't even wait. I wanted to be homeless. It's like I don't know if some of you will understand this. The way that I used drugs needed the freedom. It needed to be free. And the only thing that could provide the freedom that my addiction and my alcoholism needed was homelessness. Now, if this makes sense to you, you're very sick. But that is what happened to me. So I pull up at this park, looking at the cracked windshield now. I look at my dog. My dog looks at me, and he does this. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I stayed in that park for a few years. I liked being homeless. It looked like I liked being homeless. So from 1981 to 1987, I was in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous doing what I do in my life. Treating Alcoholics Anonymous the same way I've treated everything else in my life, which was horribly. And I didn't know that if I'm to ever recreate my life and have a brand new life like David's talking about, like a sober life, like something brand new, I need to learn how to not treat Alcoholics Anonymous the way I treated everything else in my life. And how I treated it was I'd come into your meetings, I'd come late, I'd leave early, I'd borrow money, I'd hit on your women, I'd go do a bag in the bathroom, and then I would leave. I would use it as a revenue stream, basically, because that's just what I did. I did. The book talks, it tells me, I'm a selfish, self-natured person. I'm driven by 100 forms of fear. And I'm reading these words, and I'm pretty well read. I mean, I spent a lot of time reading in my life. I know how to read, and I just can't buy that the words actually apply to me. I don't understand that. Like, I can't get the fact that the words mean what they say they mean, Kurt, and they apply to you. I couldn't get that. And therefore, I couldn't get a sobriety date because I couldn't stop living the life that I was living. So in 1987, September 10th to be exact, I remember the date, I was laying in a hospital in West Hills in intensive care fighting for my life because once again, alcoholism stitched me up that good. And I had a doctor telling me, look, man, we can't bring your fever down. We don't know what's wrong with you. I was 130 pounds. My fever was 104 for 4 days. My bowel movements were as white as this page. My urine was red. My liver was 16 centimeters big, falling out of my stomach. And I couldn't walk. And I was 23. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I was scared to death. Because all of that shit that I talked my whole life about, I'm just going to bloody dead, I'm going to go out, all that just went away when the scent of my own death, when the scent of my own mortality kind of, where I looked at that and I thought, I might not make it through this. So I begged to God that night that I did not believe in, and at the very least was very ambivalent toward because of the things that happened to me as a child and all the shame that I carried. I mean, everybody's got a reason to be ashamed of themselves. Everybody. Maybe you were the chick that's fat, or maybe you stuttered, or you wet the bed until you were 4. I mean, everybody's got something to carry around with them, and I had a lot. I'd done a lot of things that I was ashamed of. I had things done to me that I was ashamed of. That, my point really is that when it came right down to it and I thought I was going to die, I begged to God that I didn't believe in to save my life. And let me tell you what happened. I knocked out, and when I came to, it was probably 20 hours later, and my fever broke. It went from 104 to 102. If you've ever had 104 fever, you could play racquetball with 102. I mean, it's that much different, And I thought, man, wow. And I got up, I stood up, and I felt myself like I had 100 times before, coming to, and like, am I okay? Car accidents, fights, whatever. And I was. And I immediately thought to myself, what a coincidence, because this is just how ignorant I am. This is just how arrogant, ignorant, delusional that I can be. I was that way. I could be that way today. I'm convinced of this. I said a prayer that I meant with everything inside of me because I was scared to death. God, for all intents and purposes, whether you believe in a God or not, whether I did or not, it doesn't even matter. Something happened when I said that prayer, and I got healed. For 38 times a month. I mean, I'm in a meeting every day, right? Most of the time. I even behave myself some of the time. And that's not to say I'm a saint. I mean, I've been in trouble in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done a lot of things and I'll talk to you about it. I got a little bit of time. I've had to start over probably a handful of 10 times in AA. Just where I've crashed my life for one reason or another. Sober. A guy came walking into the room in that hospital, in West Hills Hospital, and he had these walking canes. Because back then, in 1987, they didn't have prosthetic limbs. He couldn't walk, and he had these canes. And he came in and he said, "Hey, son, my name's Al Jeffries." He says, "I work at the care unit downstairs. But I'm not here as a care unit guy. I'm here as a sober member of AA." He said, "I just want to know, man, is there anything I could do for you?" This is what he said to me, little bastard like me. He said, "I screwed my life up too. I fell off of a roof while I was drunk and I lost my legs." He said, "My wife left me, took all my money, and blah, 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 blah." Just told me the story. Just told me how humiliated and what happened to him. He said, "Can I do anything for you?" Now, me being 23 years old and who I was at the time, Jesus Christ himself, could have manifested himself in front of me right there, and I would have said the same thing. I said, "Al, you got a cigarette?" Because back in 1987, you actually were allowed to smoke in hospitals. They'd give you an ashtray and airplanes. I mean, it's a different world than it is now. However, you could not buy cigarettes in a hospital. They didn't sell cigarettes, but they let you smoke. Al said, "Look, I don't smoke." He said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "That's all right, Al." I said, "Thanks for coming. I need to go to sleep." And I knocked out, and when I woke back up, there were 2 packs of Camel non-filters right there on my night table. Think about that. He didn't have no fucking legs. It would have been one thing if it was you run down to 7-Eleven at Fallbrook and get me a pack of cigarettes, right? He had no legs. Al taught me, I didn't learn it then, but I know it now. He taught me everything I need to know about Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a place where we really try to help people. That's what we do. We're an international organization where we try to help people at a direct expense to ourselves a lot of the time. And that's what Al did. And I'm going to tell you how ignorant I am. I never thought about that one time for 20 years. 20 years. When I took my 20th birthday, for some reason I woke up one morning in that week and I thought, how many people stay sober 20 years? I mean, it's amazing that I did with the shit that I did. I can't even believe it. I'm going to find Al. I'm going to call Al and let him know because I'm sure he'd like to know that. Of course, it took me 20 years to actually, isn't that funny how, it just took that long for it to come to me? By the time I called him, he was dead, but he had become the president of the National Association of Alcoholism. This is who Al was, Al Jeffries, look him up. And I got his assistant on the phone. He had died like 6 months before that. And she talked to me for like an hour and a half about him, and I was telling her about him, and she was saying, "Yeah, that's so Al." And she was saying, "Al would so love to have heard from you," and blah, 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 blah. Kind of like what Keith said, that he was a great speaker here last week. "I would have so loved to hear from you," you know what I mean? So, I learned right then. I left against medical advice like I always do because I never do what I'm told. And I didn't realize, even though this miracle had been bestowed upon me. I never drank again. I never did a drug again. I never smoked a blunt again and tried to call myself sober. I never took any Xanax or Valium or anything. From that day until now, I've been clean and sober. It's unbelievably a miracle. You'd have to know me. I went to what became my home group, which was the Hole in the Sky group. It was located at Sherman Way in Topanga in the valley, if you ever get there. It's not there anymore, but there's 4 Hole in the Skies later. There is a Hole in the Sky. And there was a bunch of people in there that were having a meeting. And and they had meetings all the time at that clubhouse. I'm so thankful. I'm a product of clubhouse sobriety. I am so thankful for clubhouse sobriety. They had a meeting at 5:30 in the morning where I met Stan Cohen. They had a meeting at 5:30 in the morning. They had a meeting at 10 in the morning. They had one at noon, one at 3, one at 6:30. They'd have a meeting at 8:30, and if we were lucky, they'd have one at 10:30. And all the meetings were an hour and a half. There was always stale food that you could eat, which at the time, stale food was looking pretty good to me. I was homeless, you know what I mean? Everybody smoked. It was very interesting. There was a no smoking section, which was like 2 rows of chairs, and the other 80 people were smoking. And don't dare sit in the non-smoking section and light up a cigarette, man. They would get a little chesty about that. And back then, I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous was a little bit different in the 1980s. I'd walk into a room and there'd be 2 people arguing, and one woman would skip over 3 tables and punch somebody in the face, man. And she would be able to go to the next meeting. They would let her go. This was out, and I thought to myself, all right, I could work with this. They love me, man. They love me enough to tell me the truth. There's not enough of that in the hay today. They weren't babying me. They told me straight up, look, if you don't want to be here, don't worry about it. No, we don't do that here. I'd want to share at every meeting. I'm jaundiced. I'm yellow. I can't even walk. The only thing that works on me is my mouth. It's the truth. But I'd want to tell you everything. Have an old guy if I could pull my arm down. He'd say, don't worry, kid. We're saving you for last. You're our secret weapon. And I believed him. And then they wouldn't let me talk. One time I got up, and it was a noon meeting. I'll never forget this. And I was just having a bad day because, you know, my first few years sucked. You know what I mean? I got to be honest. I did not, it was not easy for me. You know, and I was like, I want to kill myself. I'm talking as many people as in here. I just want to die. I'm going off. You know, I'm emoting out of my mouth. And this old timer named Ted Lewis, who's dead many years now, but he was sober many years. He got up right after me. He said, young man, I think you should go kill yourself. That's what he said to me. You should go right now and go kill yourself. And I left. I stormed out of that meeting, and like 4 people followed me out. I didn't want to kill myself anymore. I wanted to kill Ted Lewis. That's why 4 people followed me out, right? I'd get in trouble. They'd throw me out, and they'd say, hey, hurry back. Hurry back. We're having a meeting at 8:30. Make sure you come. And I said, don't you worry. I'm staying right there by that trash can. I'm not going that far, you know. You know, I read the words, man. I read the book. I read the words, and I just couldn't get it, man. I didn't realize that it applied to me. They said, I'm suffering from a disease that only a spiritual experience could cure, in so many words. They said something like, in the 12 and 12 somewhere, it talks about, if my life doesn't conform to spiritual principles, the penalty will be sure and swift. I will sicken and die. I mean, there's no ambiguity in that. I mean, it's telling me that I could die here. I just came from intensive care. I read all this. I can assimilate the information. I did not believe that it applied to me. I thought, yeah, but if I just need a girlfriend with a job. I need some money. If I just had enough money, I'd be all right. And somehow, I mean, I was actually taught, somehow, I don't know if I was taught it, but I learned somehow in my culture, I was raised to believe that if I just had enough, I would be enough. I didn't realize that I have a spiritual malady that's killing me from the inside out. I was not smart enough to realize that I'm pouring drugs in my body, down my throat, up my ass, in my veins, up my nose, to fix what's wrong with me. I'm putting stuff inside of me, and for some reason I think that if I could just buy a Mercedes, that would fix me. If I just had enough of the outside stuff, it'd be okay. So naturally, I got here, I read your words, and I just didn't think they applied to me. So if you're new, if you don't think that the words apply to you, I urge you to give that a second, third, fourth, fifth look or get some good sponsorship. I didn't think it applied to me. And I went to work. And I got a job. And I went into business for myself. And I did everything that I wanted to do. And I made a lot of money by the time I had 3 or 4 years. By the time I had 3 or 4 years, I was driving what I wanted to drive. I owned a house. I had a bunch of money. I had I had a kid. I had it. My life looked good. I had more money then than I have now. And that was 35 years ago. went to a meeting, drove my Mercedes to a meeting. I'm in a suit and tie. I look good. Big. And I'm crying. I want to die. I got to the place where I had everything, and I looked around, and there wasn't one thing to blame why I felt so bad. Think about this. I felt so horrible. I've been in meetings. I felt so horrible, I wanted to die, and I couldn't even blame my physical addiction or my alcoholism for that. And that's when I started to pay some attention to this thing that's killing me, this spiritual malady that we're talking about. The root of my trouble, I think it says. I tried to gamble it away, fight it, whatever. Just so many things I tried to do because I did not want to do this. I was not going to do the fifth step. I was definitely not going to do the 9th step. So I go to the hole in the sky, and I'm pretty much got tears in my eyes. I'm just done. And this guy says, look, I can help you. And this is the one guy that you don't want to say that. You know what I mean? He's the guy that's got paint on every pair of pants he has. You know the guy in the Alano group. He's got some dented old car with a cracked windshield, a bunch of Jesus stickers on it. His hair is completely messed up. This is the guy that's going to help me. And let me tell you something about complete deflation. With $5,000 in my pocket and a brand new car outside. I said, can you help me? I'll take it. What do we do? He said, I went to a place where we worked the steps and we did it overnight. I said, overnight? He said, overnight. I said, sign me up. I'm your overnight guy. Let's do this. It's a true story. This meeting ends at 9 o'clock? It's a true story. So we get to this place. It's a clock shop. It's a retail in a strip mall. There's as many people in that room as there are in here, right? And I'll tell you real quick what happened. They split us up. A bunch of people are going to work the steps on this side. A bunch of people who already worked the steps on the other side. One by one, these people got up, and they would, I think the big book, the language that it uses is they would recount the horrors of their past. They would say some of the most shameful things that they had done, what had happened to them, their deepest, darkest. They didn't care. They were on a life and death errand. They were really helping the people behind the table to do the work. I'm out of my mind. I light up a cigarette. One guy in the back says, put out that cigarette. I didn't like his tone. I said, who said that? 11 of them stood up and said, we said that. And then take that earring out of your ear. Take the jewelry off. They made it very clear, this is not an AA meeting. This is a workshop, and if you don't want to be here, get out. We don't care. And let me tell you, I wished that I had gotten that kind of love maybe a year, 2 years. I had 4 years, 3.5 years when I got to this place to do the work. Anyway, I did everything that they said because I realized I had nowhere to go. And about an hour later, this old man came walking out. And he was old. He was like 80. He was like Stan's age. He had these bright blue eyes, looked like flashlights, man. You know the guy trying to sell you Bibles. He's lit up, and you can just see it from the inside. Just one of those guys, you know? Like, you don't really want to sign up for what he's doing, but you really want to feel like he feels. You know that guy? He says, my name's Hank Miller. He said, I got sober in 1942 in New York City. He said, and back then, before you were even invited to go to an AA meeting, you did the equivalent of what you're about to do here tonight. I hope you can stay. It's not a hat rack, 1942, New York City. Homeboy was around with the people that created this, basically, right? And I believed him. And that night, I did the first 8 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did them pretty damn thoroughly. I had an 8-step list at the end of that night. And they made it really, really super clear to me that it was my obligation to preserve this the way that I was being taught it. They taught me that in 1991. Preserve Alcoholics Anonymous the way that you're learning it now, because one day you're going to look around and it's going to be real hard to find. And I have lived to see that. I mean, if you guys have been to a lot of meetings, I mean, not all AA is the same. There's fundamental AA. I'm a fundamentalist. And then there's, as Clancy told me years ago, there's just oceans of bullshit out there, you know, which there is. This is a great group. This is a strong group. And I'm really honored and grateful to be here. I'm going to tell you something, man. I woke up this morning with somebody I love in a home that I have. I'm retired. I feel good about that. Every time I want to go to work, I just lay back down until the feeling passes. I got 5 children. 5 children. 38 all the way down to 6. Don't ask. And let me tell you something right now. I'm a safe place for those children, all of them. My oldest daughter's married to a man she loves happily. She's got 2 kids, my 2 grandsons, they're 10 and 8. They call me Papa. My youngest daughter's about to get married in October. She's 27 to a kid she loves that she's been since her high school days. They're all college graduates. I don't even understand any of that. My 19-year-old's giving me some static. I'm not going to college. I'm all, you're pretty. You don't have to go to college. Don't worry about it. Because he is the pretty one, you know. I do a book study at my house. I've been doing it for 500 years. And one day, well, at the time he was probably 15, came walking in with his stoner friends. And I'm at the table with 3 or 4 guys, and we're doing our thing with the coffee and the whole thing. You can imagine. It's what we do. And one of the kids says to my son Samuel, he says, you know, why does he do that? Samuel says he helps people. And the kid says, well, why? Samuel looked at him and says, because it's what he does. My kids see me as a guy who helps people. My oldest son's got 13 years clean and sober. He sponsors as many people as I do probably. He's in it. He does it. He's a college graduate too. But he was an addict. He was a pretty bad addict. He thought he was Jesus Christ when he was 15. He walked around in a Batman cape. I mean, he was all the way bad. This is no joke. One day, real quick story. One day, I come home, and I lived in Northern California at the time. I had 45 acres. My kids were driving my cars, you know, when they were 10, you know, because it was my property. One of my trucks was gone, and my son was gone. I think he was 13 years old. And I'm looking around. I don't find him. He's nowhere to be found. Hours go by. He's nowhere to be found. I'm worried now. Next thing I know, he's pulling up the driveway. He's got his arm out the window like Beretta, you know, driving my truck, pulling up. Now I'm mad because I'm not scared anymore because I know he's safe. I run out there and I start to, you know, one thing I've learned is how to discipline without losing my temper. Like I wait until I'm not mad. You taught me that. I said, where were you? What are you doing? And my son looked at me and he's crying. And he said, Dad, one of my friends from school called me and he was in crisis because his parents were in a fist fight. And I just went to go help him because that's what I always see you do. You want some of that? Nope. You want a new life? That's the life I got today. That's the life I got today. And I'm really super, super grateful to have it. And I'm lucky to have it. You know, and I'll tell you one more thing. It's definitely a possibility that I drink again in my life. Now I go to meetings, I go 3, 4, 5 meetings a week. I've been in a meeting one a day for the entire 38 years I've been sober. I work with people. I have a sponsor. I have commitments. It's entirely possible, if you're new, with my 38 years that I drink again. If I don't do all of that, for me, and not everybody has to do that. I have learned that the people who need the most help tend to help the most people. I have learned that in AA. It's entirely possible that I take a drink. But if I stop doing that, a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, entirely possible becomes most likely. It becomes probable that I drink again. Why? Because I like to drink. I have this thing inside of me that there used to be an old timer in the meeting. He says, yeah, when I die, you know what I mean, you could take my brain and drop it into a big old vat of Jack Daniels, and the only thing you'll hear is, you know what I mean? That's the thing, man. That's the thing. I have that. I have the alcoholism. And I have to treat it. And the way that I treat it is I really try my hardest some of the time, if not most of the time, to conform to spiritual principles. And mine don't have to be what yours are, but they have to be something. I have to establish a moral code for myself. And I have to really admit, acknowledge, and accept when I break it. And I have to admit it to somebody. And I have to try to make it right. And I get to do all these things. I might be the luckiest person that I know. And if you're new and you need help, there's help out here. There's plenty of people that want to work with you. I beg you to do it. I beg you to give it a shot. You never know, man. You never know when it's going to happen. Look at you. You never know. Thanks a lot.